As this assembly meets today, the conflict in Ukraine continues to rage 3 years since it erupted, inflicting unimaginable suffering on millions of people and leaving a trail of destruction and misery. And so far, even as the military and humanitarian crisis has intensified, the pursuit of peace has remained largely absent and elusive. Pakistan is deeply concerned by this conflict that has caused immense human suffering and massive damage to infrastructure, economy, and society. It has had vast consequences for the global economy and particularly for the developing countries. Most ominously, if the hostilities continue, there is an ever-present danger of further military and geographical escalation of this conflict, which poses a clear and significant threat to international peace and security. Pakistan's position on this, as other conflicts, is based on adherence to the principles of the UN Charter: self-determination for peoples, respect for the sovereignty and territorial integrity of states, and non-acquisition of territory by the threat or use of force. Consistent with the Charter, states must also implement international agreements and abide by their respective obligations and respond to the legitimate security interests of all states. Mr. President, Pakistan regrets that the principles of the UN Charter have not been universally or consistently applied. In particular, these principles have been flagrantly violated for over decades in the brutal foreign occupation of Jammu and Kashmir and Palestine. The resolutions of the Security Council calling for the exercise of the right to self-determination by the peoples of Kashmir and Palestine remain to be implemented, imperiling international peace and security. International law and justice must be upheld everywhere. Mr. President, we believe the conflict in Ukraine could have been averted through dialogue and diplomacy. It must be brought to an end now, urgently, through constructive and inclusive diplomacy. As a country that has seen and suffered the consequences of prolonged conflict in our neighborhood, Pakistan has consistently advocated immediate cessation of hostilities and resumption of dialogue to achieve a just, lasting, and durable solution to this conflict. Pakistan therefore endorses the call for an urgent and swift end to the conflict between Ukraine and Russia and the pursuit of active diplomatic efforts to achieve enduring peace. We see merit in the resolution proposed by the US in this regard. Pakistan had welcomed the early mediatory efforts by Turkey. We also saw value in the endeavor of some countries from the global south to promote a peaceful settlement. We are encouraged that efforts to bring an end to this conflict have gathered wider momentum. We take note of the recent high-level contacts between the US and Russian leadership and commend the role played by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia in facilitating dialogue and diplomacy. Mr. President, Pakistan would welcome any initiative which helps lead the parties to arrive at a pacific and sustainable settlement of this tragic conflict through constructive and inclusive diplomacy, in full respect for the UN Charter, international law, and relevant multilateral agreements, and which is responsive to the legitimate national security interests of all sides. To this end, Pakistan stands ready to play a constructive role in this assembly, in the Security Council, and in other forums to promote effective and inclusive diplomatic endeavors aimed at bringing a swift end to this conflict in accordance with international law and the UN Charter. As we vote on different proposals today, we hope everyone will come together, united for peace. We must not miss this opportunity. I thank you.
I thank the distinguished representative of Pakistan.